solve this quadratic, I know it's quadratic because it's to the second power, and it says solve by the square root method. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the square root of both sides. All right, I've got the square root of something squared leaves that. Leaves what was squared is going to be all by itself. And then this is going to be, the square root of 16 is 4. And now I need to remember I have two solutions. If I have a quadratic equation, there's going to be two solutions. So it's plus or minus 4. And then I would subtract 3 from both sides. So I get x equals, and it would be negative 4 minus 3 for one solution, and then the other solution is x equals negative 4, or excuse me, positive 4 minus 3. So I've got negative 7 for a solution and 1 for my solution. All right, and if I was to look at a graph of this on the calculator, I can see that it's the x-intercepts, right, because it's x equals. All right, the x-intercepts are going to be at negative 7 and positive 1. So let me check that. Okay, so I have the x plus 3 squared, and then I've got to subtract 16 so that I have 0 on one side. Remember, when you're solving, you're always looking for zeros. So I would subtract 16 from both sides, and I look at the graph and notice that that is where it hits, when x is negative 7. And when x is 1. And I can also look at the table. All right, my 0 is when x is 1, and the other 0 is when x is negative 7. All right, you can see it right there. When x is negative 7, y is 0. Okay. All right, so now let's look at number 3. Same thing, I want to, if I'm solving for a quadratic, I want to get the quadratic by itself. So I'm going to add 36 to both sides. And so I get 3x squared equals 36. Divide by 3, divide by 3, I get x squared equals 12. And then I'm going to square root both sides. So I get x equals the square root of 12. And it's plus or minus because it's always two solutions for a quadratic. All right, but now the square root of 12 I can simplify. Right, because the square root of 12 is the square root of 4 times the square root of 3, and the square root of 4 is 2. So that would be, oops, let me erase. So 2, square root of 4 is 2, and then I have radical 3. All right, and that would be my value. Those are my two solutions, and those would be the two x-intercepts. If I was to look at that on the graph, I get those two real solutions. All right. Then number 4, let me erase this a little bit. Number 4, again, I've got this whole quantity squared. All right, and so what I'm going to do is I'm going to square root both sides, and that way all that's left is that quantity. The x minus 1 is all by itself. And then I have over here, I have 5, but it would be plus or minus 5 because I'm solving a quadratic. And then now I want to get the 1 by itself, or the x by itself, so I'm going to add 1 to both sides. So I get x equals positive 5 plus 1, and x equals negative 5 plus 1. So that equals 6 and negative 4. My two solutions there. All right, and then this number 5, again, if I want to get x by itself, right, I would add 32 to both sides. So I get 2x squared equals 32, divide by 2. So I get x squared equals 16. And then I'm going to square root both sides. So those cancel out, and I get x equals, and then remember it's plus or minus 4. I always have two solutions if I'm solving a quadratic. Okay, and if I wanted to check on my calculator, I could just type in that function and see what the zeros are. So I'll go ahead and do that real quick. Okay, so there's my equation. 2x squared equals minus 32 equals 0. So I'm looking for the zeros, which are the x-intercepts. And notice it's positive 4 and negative 4, which are the zeros. And I could also look at my table, and there's 1, 0, right? When x is negative 4, y is 0. All right, and then I could go look at when x is positive 4, when y is positive 4, y is 0. Right? Okay. Very good. So that is the square root method, where you take the square root, get x squared all by itself, and then you square root both sides.